series. And like it always happens, for every session on ethanol or biogas, we had almost up to 600 registrations for this tech talk as well. And in the morning session, we had about 230 people attending. And this session as well, we expect about 200 plus attendees. We've had a splendid session in the morning, and now we'll be discussing on ethanol. And we'll be broadly covering a few topics such as need for ethanol and the ethanol blending program, the EBP, which all of us have been hearing. Assessment work that is typically required to start the projects, the technology that is required for ethanol manufacturing, complete roadmap for ethanol production, and finally the funding options that are available. We will also hint a little bit on the government schemes and the interest subvention scheme that's available. Quickly, what SolutionBuggy does. It's an online platform to connect the manufacturing industries with the experts. We are proud to say that we are one of India's largest platform for the MSME sector. We have about 10,000 experts on the platform and have executed 2,300 plus projects across India over the last 6 years. And when I say projects, it could be anything from a one-day consulting assignment all the way to setting up of industries running up to a year or even 18 months. We basically look at the market research, product identification, detailed project report, machinery procurement, plant setup, commissioning, supply chain management, and sales and marketing. And on a few occasions, we have also helped in funding as well. Especially on the ethanol front, currently we have 7 ongoing projects across India in Mirzapur, UP, Bagalkot, Madurai, 3 in Maharashtra, and 1 in Rajasthan, running with SolutionBuggy, and they are at various levels of execution phase. Some of them have completed their EC and have got additional objections that have to be cleared for getting the EC. One of them has actually completed the EC and got into the OMC agreement stage, which are in the advanced stages of discussion. With that, I am Guru Prasad Bangle, director at SolutionBuggy, and I have about 20 plus years of experience in consulting. I am an MBA from IIM Bangalore and electronics engineer. I would now like to introduce the stellar set of speakers that we have for this session. Firstly, I'll have Mr. Anilesh, who has more than 3 decades of experience in the Indian oil and gas sector. He has coordinated ethanol plant setup in 3 companies and across states like UP, MP. And currently he's working with 2 companies in setting up their grain-based ethanol plants with capacities of 200 KLPD. These are based in AP. We welcome you, Mr. Anilesh. Next, I have Mr. Torben Bond. He is the CEO at Biofuel Technology. He is joining us from Denmark. He has about 25 plus years of experience in biochemical process and technology. He has a PhD in microbial ecology from Denmark. I welcome you, Mr. Torben.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Next, I have Dr. Sanjay Prakash Sahu, who is the CEO at RZA Principal Knowledge Advisory. He has about 25 plus years of experience in technology as well as in finance. He is a PhD in artificial intelligence and neural networks from NUS Singapore. I welcome you, Dr. Sanjay.
Hello, Guru.
So I think most of the people who have gathered I'm sorry. I think I got muted. No? Okay. I would like to invite Mr. Anilesh to come in and speak about the opportunities in ethanol and the EBP in general, and also what the actual ethanol processing involves. Over to you, Mr. Anilesh.
Please show the presentation, first page. Good afternoon, all the participants. Around 250 participants are there, 256 rather. Next. The biofuel is ethanol is a biofuel worldwide. Brazil has started around 1973, and other countries are also using, Canada and USA. Fuel ethanol is used as an oxidant to reduce the carbon content, CO2 content from the atmosphere. India is using ethanol since 2004 under the EBP program, that is ethanol blending in petrol program. But the progress was not very good up to 2014. Only 1% of ethanol was being blended. The current status is we have to blend around 10% for this financial year, but the actual rate is coming to around 8.5%. And from 2004 to 2018, it has reached only 4.3%. Next slide, please. Next slide. No, go back, please. Go back. Yeah. Biofuel policy of Government of India was declared on 2018, and there were two reasons to declare this policy. One, to reduce the import of crude bill, which was in dollars, and the second was to enhance the farmers' income substantially under the double the farmers' scheme income of Government of India. EBP, that is ethanol blending in petrol scheme, is going to be executed 20% from the next financial year. They are going to start. The current rate is 10% as per the government norms. There is a huge deficit in supply, demand and supply position. The government has also planned EBP 85 and EBP 100 schemes. That is we call as a flex engine schemes. This flex engine scheme is already working in Brazil since 1973. Next, please. Ethyl alcohol, is ethanol. The chemical properties are mentioned here, the melting point and the molar basis and all. This is all for the academic interest. If somebody wants to note down, they can do it. Please. Now, ethanol blending program in petrol was reviewed in 2018 when the biofuel policy came into picture. Now, we are running at this current financial year. It is E10, but by E20 we have to achieve the target. E20 target, they are going to start from the next financial year, and within 2 years they will have to achieve. So with this, there is a huge demand of ethanol in India. There are two things in ethanol. One is with the sugarcane industry, and another is with the grain. The government has also allowed the production of ethanol from grains, that is broken rice, damaged food, this maize, etc. And in the sugarcane industry, the molasses, B heavy molasses and C heavy molasses, and the syrup. So we have got the 5 types of ethanol in India. One is produced from the syrup, cane juice and syrup. Second is B molasses. Third is C molasses. The fourth is damaged fruit. And the fifth is excess food, which is available with the Food Corporation of India. And the sixth, they have recently added with the match. So currently with the, I will be covering grain because molasses and cane sugar, this is being done by the sugar factories and they have almost exhausted their capacity. During the last 7-8 years, the cane sugar production in the area has increased by 10 to 15%. And the sugar mills are meeting the 50% demand of the total requirement of ethanol. Next, they will be now concentrating on the food grains. The food grains is basically the damaged food and the excess food category. So 500 crore liters demand is there, which will be taken from the grains. Next slide, please. So this chart is showing the 500 crore liters ethanol will be coming from around 150 plants. The government department, that is we call as a DFPD, Department of Food and Public Distribution of Government of India. They are the nodal agency for the execution of ethanol in India. This chart shows the availability of the feedstock for ethanol in the country. So we have a sufficient stock. Food Corporation of India has a sufficient surplus food grains to be released for the production of ethanol by the grains. Next slide. This is actually the government data. This is again a government data which shows the projection, grains and the molasses. So you see the 50% is from the molasses field and the 50% is from the grains by 2526. So it's a huge demand is going to be on the grains because molasses production and the area is now exhausted. So government is now depending on the grain production. Next slide, please. This is again a government data which shows the ethanol capacity augmentation for the target of the government is E20, that is 20% blending by 2025 and 26. They are going to start because in India, there are certain states like UP and other places where the ethanol production is touching around 20%. So from next year, they are going to blend 20% in these states. Next. Ethanol is will be facing a challenge from the electric and the hydrogen vehicles also. But we need not to worry because electric vehicles, the biggest problem is the charging stations and the carbon emission because for electric vehicles, the power is coming from mostly the power is coming from the coal. So government is not very keen to give this power for the EV generation. Hydrogen vehicles they are facing a problem because of the storage, because hydrogen itself is a hydrogen bomb. So these two things will be taking 5 to 10 years minimum, to my understanding. Now the EBB policy is getting a boost from the ministry because they have announced the scrappage policy for the vehicles. So for the petrol vehicles, they have given it a 20 years lifetime. So that means whatever the vehicles is purchased in this financial year, they will run at least 20 years. So when the petrol vehicles is available, so ethanol will also be available for this. So at least the life of ethanol production and the consumption will be around 20 years. There are the 6 categories which I have mentioned here, where the ethanol is purchased from by the oil marketing companies. See, in this process, we produce the ethanol. I mean, the market is assured by the government. Government is telling you produce whatever you can, and we will purchase all the quantity through the oil marketing companies. Now, government has also previous, please. Next. Government is supporting hugely. I mean, in a big way with the interest subvention. There is some spelling mistake. Subvention scheme, which says that if you are taking a bank loan up to 12%, the 6% will be borne by the company. That is the 50%, and for 5 years. Suppose you have taken a loan on 80/20 scheme, say for example 100 crores. So and at the rate of 9%, so 4.5%, that is the 50% of that will be borne by the government, and for the 5 years. Now, DFPD has announced, which is a government department, the scheme again in the month of April, 22nd April 2020, and this scheme initially was launched for the 6 months, but now again they have extended for the 6 months another, that is up to the 31st March 2023. And based on the DFPD, the oil marketing companies will be signing a tripartite agreement to facilitate the purchase of ethanol directly from the manufacturer. 21-day cycle is mandatory for the oil marketing companies to make the payment to the ethanol, which is the biggest achievement by the ethanol manufacturer, because their payment cycle will be 21 days, maybe lesser. Maximum is 21 days. Next. Future projections, as I said, that it was only 14,000 crores liters. Now, with the recently launched flex vehicles by Toyota, and 2 days back, the Maruti has launched WagonR as a flex vehicle, and this is for the four-wheelers. Other companies will also be launching the flex engines for ethanol. And oil marketing companies will be giving maybe after 6 months time the full ethanol to the flex vehicles. Now E85 and E100, there are two types of ethanol that is we call as the flex engines. In E85 you mix 85% ethanol and 15% there are certain chemicals. And in the 2-3-wheelers, you can mix 100% ethanol, that is we call as the E100. 2-3-wheelers are also coming, is launched in the Nagpur, I think 3 months back by our Honorable Minister Gadkari Saab. So there is a huge potential for ethanol is going to come in India. And the demand supply deficit will continue for another 4 to 5 years. So there is a huge scope for all the manufacturers to increase the capacity and the new ventures to join and start the production. Because whatever you produce, government is ready to purchase. So as far as the marketing is concerned, you are safe. The only thing is that you have to arrange the funds and arrange the resources. That's all. Next, please. In short, I'm telling the financials. We need, if you are going to put up a 100 KL per day plant, 100 kiloliter per day plant, ethanol, we need around 15 acres of land. Finance funds around 110 crores. 80% will be can be taken from the loan. Although government have a 595 scheme also, but banks are not giving because of the financial strength of the investors. So we can get up to the 80% easily. 40 crores is required for your working capital because you have to maintain around 2 to 3 months stock, raw material stock, and your payment cycle from the oil marketing company will be 21 days. Government support is already there. The biggest part in this project is that zero liquid discharge. Whatever we will be producing, nothing is going in the environment, neither in air nor in ground. So for getting the environmental clearance, zero liquid discharge is the must criteria. Raw material is available in most of the in most parts of the country, and the IRR of this project is around 21%. That shows that your return on investment will be in 4 to 5 years. Water is required. A huge quantity of water is required. So we suggest that you have to, select the land near the source of water. The byproducts are electricity, because electricity we are cogeneration plant we are setting up. So we produce the electricity for our purpose also, and we can transfer to the grid, main grid, and earn money. So electricity I'm taking as a byproduct. Carbon dioxide, food grade and industrial grade, it's again a earning. Cattle feed is again a earning, and dry ash is also earning. So this project, ethanol, is basically a win-win situation for the government of India to save the dollars. For farmers, they get the assured return on their crops, and for the businessman, it is a 4 years, 4 to 5 years return. Next, please. Next. See, engineering, plant, and machinery are very much available in India, and at a reasonably competitive price, because there are more than 10 to 15 manufacturers available basically in Maharashtra, Pune, and they have a good capacity to install for all these purposes. Next. Next. If you see, the RSP is around for 6 categories. That is starting with 55, 58, 59, 65 is for syrup, cane sugar, and 55 is for the damaged food. So the actual costing of your product is around, there is a margin of 5 to 6 rupees net profit after all expenses, all taxes, everything. Next. This is a technology. Ethanol manufacturing has a very simple technology of fermentation, liquefaction, cooking, and all these things. We have to maintain a zero liquid discharge. That is the condition of the government and environmental clearance. Next. I have also tried to give you a SWOT analysis. The strength is, as I mentioned here, the ethanol consumers and the purchasers are readily available in India. Raw materials is available in plenty. Favorable government policy is going to continue because the masses are covered into this. Ethanol is a huge deficit supply and demand product, and will remain in deficit because the consumption is going to increase like anything. RSP, that is the retail selling price of is also being controlled by the oil marketing companies, and they have a payment cycle of 21 days strictly. So nobody is going into loss. Weaknesses may you can take, like there is some complexities and the high cost of the project. Project is a costly affair. Next, please. Opportunities are huge because the demand is huge, and this demand is only for the petrol engines. Now, government is also working to find out a solution to mix ethanol into diesel vehicles. I'll tell you one data that in India, the ratio of the petrol and diesel consumption is around 1:2. That is 33% petrol is used in India and 67% is diesel. If this technology is coming into picture, the demand will go to 3 times of the existing. So we are just waiting for our scientists to develop a connector to blend ethanol and the diesel. setting up a we can set up a CO2 plant also which is produced in our plant. We can set up a cattle feed plant also. We can set up a brick plant from the fly ashes, which is our byproduct. Threat, I don't see any threat, but for the sake of writing, I've just written that government policy may affect, because we are more dependent on the government. But I have a firm belief on the current government and the future government also, that this policy will not be changed. Risk and the mitigation, raw material, maybe a shortage at some places, but you have to firm up the firm ties with the offerings with the manufacturers. Next, please. So overall, if you see the project, if you have a 40 crores in your hand for the working capital, the government and the bank, the oil marketing companies, the plant and machinery suppliers, the agriculture supplier, this is everything is available. Only thing is that you have to have a working capital to start this project. And I can assure each and everyone that it is a profitable proposition for government, for oil marketing companies, for the manufacturers, and for the agriculturists. So I think I have completed and covered the portion which I wanted to cover. This is again a quick start. If you want to start a ethanol facility, you just see the capital, raw material is there, form a private limited company, purchase a suitable piece of land, and convert that land into a industrial use, obtain environmental clearance, which they give in a month or maximum to 45 days. Then you have to go to the pollution control board. They also give in a 21 days. Recently, we got in 21 days in the Andhra Pradesh. We have simply applied on a single window portal. They raise some queries. We have supplied them the queries, and within 20 days, we got the pollution clearance. And exactly the same case happened in the environmental clearance also. Single window we have applied. They raised some queries, we have replied to them, and we got into this. So government policy is very transparent, very very positive. DFPD is a department who is monitoring all these activities. And if you go to DFPD with any problem, if you say, "Sir, bank humko loan nahi de raha hai," they will immediately talk to the chairman of the bank and will help you. Because getting a bank loan in principal approval is also not a problem. Banks are always ready because they know the profitability position. And plant machinery is not an issue. There are 15 to 20 manufacturers, big manufacturers, quality manufacturers available in India. So this is from my side. Any question if you want to raise, you can raise at the last. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bearing with me.
Yeah. Thank you for giving kind of a crisp explanation on the entire process. I'm sure there is a lot of knowledge and also a lot of customization that will be involved for each of the questions that we are getting. But overall, just to reiterate the point, ethanol today is got very good demand from the government, and getting a tri-party agreement with the OMC is not at all an issue. But what you have to, as an entrepreneur, look at is like how Mr. Anilesh said, the kind of raw material that is available, and if you can procure the raw material at a price which is going to be feasible, then it really makes good sense. And also, like how he said, there are opportunities to set up smaller plants, not looking at only 60 KLPD or 100 KLPD kind of plants. But in that case, you might not conform to the OMC agreements, or you might not be able to get the bank loans at a lower rate, or you might not be conforming to the government schemes. But in that case, there are options that wherein you can set up integrated plants of manufacturing, say, for example, cattle feed plants, or you could be supplying the ethanol directly to the distilleries, or by setting up few more distillation channels, you can make food grade ethanol, which can be supplied to the distilleries, or it could be supplied to pharma companies. So obviously there are options. And also we keep getting questions, can I make ethanol from other sources? Currently only these 5 sources come under the government scheme, which Mr. Anilesh said: the C heavy molasses, B heavy molasses, sugarcane juice, and the maize and broken rice. But any other there are many ways of making ethanol. Basically, it's an alcohol. So anything having starch can be fermented and made into ethanol. But these don't come under the scheme as of today. But they can be used to set up smaller plants, and then, like say for example, bamboo, or you are having, ragi, maize, millets. So all of these can be used to make ethanol, but these can be supplied to other, as raw material to other industries. So with that, I think obviously we have a lot of questions. I would like to park the questions as of now, but because we have another speaker, Mr. Tobin Bond, who will be joining us from Denmark and taking us through the the other processings that can be taken up. Over to you, Mr. Tobin.
Thank you very much. And may I have the first slide? Good afternoon to everybody. It is a very great pleasure for me, as part of the European Sustainable Union Solutions outreach to India, and support that outreach as presented to you all by Lars Rosgaard. So I'm very happy to support that outreach and present what we have a vision for Denmark, for India, and the country. The first slide here is illustration of the first slide, please. The first slide is an illustration of the plant that I am designing and start building next year. My field is working with cellulosic material to produce a range of biofuels. And this particular plant will utilize 410,000 tons briquetted cellulosic feedstock, mainly crop residues and forest residues. And it will produce more than 300 million cubic meters biogas, and the CO2 from that biogas will be converted to jet fuel. So my entrance to this market is very large-scale, single feedstock, cellulosic ethanol, biogas methanol plants. And I focus on cellulosic material because I see it as a raw material for the future when we talk biofuels. The next slide, please. The challenges of the world can all be solved. We have all the technologies that we need. We are able to collect any and all wastes, liquid waste, solid waste, liquid cellulose, whatnot, and we are perfectly able to convert that into a range of not only fuels, but also a range of services to communities and humankind. So technologies are not limiting factor here. We just need to formulate the vision and then approach the vision step by step in order to realize this updated modern way of going about our lives. The next slide, please. What the first task is to look at, where do we have the available energy resources. And clearly, we have a very large quantity of energy sitting right under everybody's noses. We are looking at it on a daily basis. We have that in form of crop residues and forest residues. That's indisputable. It is pure mathematics. You can just look up the annual production of rice straw and wheat straw and bamboo leftovers and you name it. Globally, we have enough cellulosic biomass to supply all the fuels and green chemicals we need. In particular, when we also go about it in a clever way so that we can boost the production with green power. I'll come back to that. But the trick here is how to collect it and process it in an intelligent manner so that we actually can access this very, very large quantity of energy we have in our biomass. And we go about that by bricketing and special evolved dedicated bricketing. In any rural society, we can supply big bales to a satellite bricketing station and here transform and pre-process the raw material to high density, homogeneous, quality briquettes. And that solves virtually all issues with cellulosic ethanol and other cellulosic biofuels. And that is because now we can store and transport the raw material, the feedstock, and we can process it with virtually 100% uptime. And we can also afford to collect not only 100,000 tons, but 500,000 tons and maybe up to 1.5 million tons for one particular project. And that opens a whole new range of industrial technologies that we can apply to this field and render our processes much more economic and much more efficient. The next slide, please. We have been working with biogas and cellulosic ethanol and methanol in Denmark for decades. And one important reference point that is now 10 years old is this demo plant called Lindbekon. It has been running for a number of years, and here we tested every and all technologies: hydrothermal pretreatment, enzyme mixing, yeast fermentation, all of these processes based on cellulosic material. So we have a very good starting point here, along with very competent peer companies. Besides my own, we have Novozymes with very good enzymes. We have very good yeasts, and we have a very good technology base. And I also know from personal experience that in India, you have very good engineering companies that are also working in the field of ethanol, like, for instance, Praj, P-R-A-J, Praj, I think it's pronounced. I have met them here in Denmark and are in a dialogue with them. So we have now a very good base. And now the cell brick technology, the one that I'm marketing now, is a benchmark against this one. So I add further advancements of the benchmark technology. And I'll come back to that. The next slide, please. So I market the cell brick technology. And I do that because we are all aware that the bottleneck, the issue with cellulosic ethanol, has always been the raw material supply and the pre-treatment. But the cell brick overcomes this bottleneck because having the feedstock concentrated in high density briquette allows us a timely supply of feedstock at any time, 24/7, which is easily then further processed. It also ensures that I can run the ethanol plant with 100% uptime because I have no further issues with the pre-treatment, which is the eye of the needle of any cellulosic ethanol process. So in short, this two-phase system, the initial collection, pre-processing, briquetting, making it homogeneous, high density, etc., along with the final hydrothermal pre-treatment that then runs 100% uptime, is actually the new cost-effective solution that I present here. And of course, I can do the final hydrothermal pretreatment in a dedicated, very simple plug flow reactor. So now we have opened this vast resource of feedstock, the cellulosic material for ethanol production, which can easily compete with food-based, with grain-based ethanol. And I compliment your government for focusing on molasses and syrup and those materials and not actual grains for food, you know. The next slide, please. So typically, depending on the local circumstances, we set up a satellite station remotely in areas where there are excesses of various feedstocks, rice straw, wheat straw, bamboo leftovers, forest residues, and whatnot. And here is illustrated that we get bales in, we are shredding them, we are removing sand and stone and silt and whatnot, drying it if necessary, we mill it down to 20-30 millimeter, then we process into briquettes and we load the briquettes onto containers, and from those containers we can ship the briquettes to a central ethanol facility. That's on the next slide, please. We have developed a dedicated machine to do this briquetting as cost effectively and energy effectively as possible. And this machine on the right, the briquette press 7510, it has a capacity of minimum 2.5 tons per hour and maybe up to 3 or 3.5 tons per hour, depending on the material. So this is very robust, very reliable, and I utilize less than 75 kilowatt hour per tons produced briquettes, which is far less in comparison to pelletizing. And that is because I produce briquettes with a diameter of 120 millimeters and employ a specific process in my briquetting machine. So that is the basis, that is the starting point. The next slide, please. And here's another layout of how we can vary the layout of and the design of satellite stations. Here's an illustration of the various big bales that are coming in. They are loading on a band. They are forwarded to a shredder and then a miller, and then it goes into the presses, etc., etc. We can design with one machine or several machines according to local needs. The next slide. Those are thoughts that work with crop residue cellulosic material. We know that straw looks like this. You can all realize that it's very porous. There's a wax surface on it, and this very structure prevents it from being effectively utilized for biofuels. But not following the briquetting process that we have invented. The next slide, please. What happens here is very, very extraordinary and key to opening this resource. On the left hand, you see a flattened straw fiber. And when that is re-wetted, it springs into its virtually original shape because all the pores have been penetrated, partly exploded, so that water and enzymes and bacteria can penetrate the straw. Straw is simply rendered from being very hydrophobic to being highly hydrophilic. And that has a range of very important biochemical and physical implications for cellulosic ethanol production. The next slide, please. So, the way I see ethanol production is not a single fuel production. It is, as a minimum, 2 biofuels. You see here the very high-level layout. We have the briquettes on the left hand. They go into thermal pretreatment, then enzymatic hydrolysis, fermentation, distillation, and then we get the ethanol. But then we all know that it's only the cellulosic and the hemicellulosic matter that is converted to ethanol. All the remaining organic matter is a good substrate for producing biogas. So from that stillet, we produce biogas. And that is important because now I can ensure that all organics that comes to this plant is de facto converted to 2 value-added fuels. One, ethanol, and the second, biogas. There are no wastes here. They are all converted to 2 valuable fuels, and then there is some fertilizers. The next slide, please. So the original starting point is providing the briquettes. But when we start a project, we must start by introducing the back end of a cellulosic ethanol process. And the back end is a minimum biogas plant of this approximate scale that looks approximately like this. We begin with collecting the various organic waste available in any rural community, village, nearby city, and add it to this plant. And then we top up with at least 150,000 tons of straw briquettes. And then we produced a minimum of 50 million cubic meter methane annually, or about 100 tons LPG per day. This is the first stepping stone in realizing a very large ethanol production, because this is where we prove ourselves that we can actually manage a plant, that we can collect the straw briquettes. Now we have a basis to proceed with ethanol. And this alone is a major, major benefit to the local cities, rural communities, because this large-scale plant, it can produce power and heat to local grids. It can produce gas to local grids. It can produce CBG, LPG. It is a waste disposal offer. It is a healthy ecosystem offer, etc., etc., etc. And the basic rationale here is that it is all well and good to collect various liquid waste, etc., etc., but the energy yield is very, very poor. What makes this an economic and profitable enterprise is the addition of the straw briquettes. They bring in about 90% of the energy output. So this makes it a profitable, large-scale industrial enterprise that the big capital funds and bankers are interested in investing in. The next slide, please. Here's just an illustration of the services that a local large-scale biogas facility can provide, but simply by working in large scale, we can afford producing both CBG or LNG according to the needs. So that is the scale we need to work on. The next slide, please. And my vision for India, I think this is a map of Punjab. You see all these villages like stars on the sky in night. Any and all of these villages need to identify the best sites for establishing these projects. This will simply do immense benefit to India as it does in South America and Denmark and elsewhere globally. The next slide, please. A little bit further to the industrial process design. This is a further breakdown, and here again you recognize that the brackets are coming in, and then we start out with the ethanol process, and then I have detailed a little bit of the biogas process on my right hand. You see the anaerobic digestion box, and you see some of the advanced industrial processes that we can apply here. I use ultrafilters and reverse osmosis filters to clean up all the liquids and then produce mineral fertilizer and recycle the water. And I also have a process that allows me to partly oxidize lignin so that I can convert also lignin to biogas. So this ensures that all the organics that are coming in is converted to ethanol, biogas, and fertilizer with no digested coming out. The next slide, please. So in order to sum up a little bit of what cellulosic ethanol brings about, it brings about the foundation. It ensures the feedstock. But also there are dedicated elements that are very important in the ethanol process. There are significantly reduced capital costs for the pretreatment system. I have no bottlenecks. I don't need to put in the chemicals we use. I improve the C5 recovery. I increase the ethanol yield. I reduce energy consumption, etc., etc. So these are very important additional benefits when I apply the CellBlock technology. The next slide, please. So here, average rounded off numbers for how it looks. We bring in about 450,000 tons briquetted feedstock, 400,000 tons dry matter, 50,000 tons water, and it could be rice straw, wheat straw, or whatnot. And out of that, we produce 100,000 tons ethanol and 100,000 tons fermentation CO2 from the actual ethanol fermentation. We produce the biogas, 150,000 tons. That is 40,000 tons methane and 110,000 tons CO2. And in the final stage, we can take the fermentation CO2 and the CO2 from the biogas, react it with hydrogen, and then produce approximately 150,000 tons methanol. And then there's a production of the mineral fertilizers. So the first step is starting producing the biogas, then we add with the ethanol, and then finally with the methanol. And I know that you have very large industries in the photovoltaic, so you produce a large quantity of green power that can be used to produce green hydrogen. and the green hydrogen is needed here to do the final step, the methanol. But this is my vision, and this vision can provide India with all the fuels it needs, in addition to providing a pure environment. And also because we work on an industrial scale and we combine these technologies, we are simply competitive against any peer globally in terms of volume, price, timing, and global potential. The final slide, please. Now it just remains for me to say thank you for your attention. Thank you to Yususu, Lars Rosgaard, for allowing me this opportunity in cooperation with your Indian counterparts. I hope that we will have a fruitful cooperation in the future. There is a job to be done. It simply must be done, not only for us, but also for the future. And we can do it. We have all ideas and technologies. We just need to come up with a good cooperation and a trustworthy cooperation. Then we can ensure the funding, the banks, the capital to provide this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taban. What I would also want to ask you is, where can we see a implemented plant of this nature?
Yes, you can see some plants in Denmark that are operating with briquettes. That is perfectly able to see. Presently, there are no ethanol plants using briquettes, but I have 3 or 4 plants in my pipeline, so that will be realized as we go. But presently, you can see the briquettes being used for biogas. And of course, we have all the experimentation available for you. We have all the details lined out, how briquettes perform in a cellulosic ethanol process. So we can guarantee the performances, the output, once we know the quality of the feedstock.
Okay. So if somebody would have to, set it up in India, it will be, would he require any government-related approvals in place before?
Pardon me, can you repeat your question?
So if somebody wants to set it up in India, would he require any additional government approvals which are required other than the normal ethanol plants?
Well, I don't know. I noted in the former speaker's slide that molasses and other substrates were approved for ethanol. And I don't know the case in India, but I'm sure that cellulosic ethanol is always allowed. There is no prevention in India of using cellulosic material.
Right.
So you can just go ahead with it.
Right.
The only reason why foods, grains are regulated is because they are grains. You don't need to regulate the use of cellulosic material.
Right. Right. Thank you, Mr. Bond. There are a few questions. I'll park it as of now, and I'll now invite Dr. Sanjay to come in and talk a little bit about the funding options that are available. Dr. Sanjay, your presentation will be put up now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot, Arjun, and thanks a lot, Guru, for creating such wonderful sessions time and again. And after the uh, exhaustive deliberation by Mr. Aniles and the intensive discussion by Mr. Torben Bunde. I think the only thing that is left for me is to clarify the food versus fuel debate.
Yeah.
And as Mr. Torben Andrews Bunde said, that it's to be done and it must be done and we can do it. Yes, we can do it. But then we have to balance the food versus fuel ratio. So we should also, I mean, equal stress has to be given to the 2G processes, where Dr. Bunde excels in, that is converting these straws, or what we say as parali, uh, converting them into either biogas or ethanol. My topic is, how do we fund these enterprises? As Mr. Nilesh was explaining very clearly that what are the government instruments that is available, including the interest subvention, and we have the 5% collateral plus 5% margin money. And then we have this oft repeated 20%. I'll come to my first slide. Don't worry. I mean, uh, this is the amount that is mentioned over there is too big, and that's the money that is to be deployed that has not already been deployed. So we'll come to that. So what happens is there are many companies who do not even after the companies who get qualified through the Department of Food and Public Distribution, and they get a LOI from the oil marketing companies, that is either Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited or Indian Oil Corporation Limited or Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited. But even after that, they fail to get the complete funding, either through the 5% escrow, with or without the entrance subvention, or the 20-80%. That is where we have set up a alternative investment platform where we try to help these entrepreneurs establish industries. They come from small, medium, and large industry segments to do a complete funding for them. Not only arrange the bridge funding, we do a complete project funding. And generally, we all our investors, they are most of the investors that we have are spread across the world. So what happens is we our stress is on the external commercial borrowing. So our interest rates are lower, but then there are certain qualification criteria. I'll go through the slide, guys. It's a routine thing. You can download the slide from my website, and that's pretty easy. But I'll just try to be quick, and since I'm the last speaker, and there will be a lot of questions that people wanted to ask. The main thing that we ask of the entrepreneur is what is their skin in the game, what is their contribution. And when we say margin money, let's say for example, if X is the um, capital that is required for the project, we provide the whole of the X capital, provided the promoter has a LOI from the OMC, and the promoter is able to show at least 15 to 20% of X in his bank account. He doesn't have to contribute that money to the project, but he needs to park that money. He needs to have the proof of fund, and he needs to keep there till the operational date. So that gives the comfort to the investor that whatever the investor will not invest X minus 0.15x or 0.20x. That is not, he will not invest 80% or 85%, he will invest 100%. But they want the promoter to also uh, park 15 to 20% of the project value of the money in their own bank account, in any bank, any Indian bank. So let's just quickly go through the slides, because while we cover the slides, I will also explain that this alternative investment platform that we explain, which is basically project funding based on special purpose vehicle. How does it come to? We have 300 plus man years of diverse, extensive financial experience. We have around 17 partners all over the world, and between them, we have billions of dollars of asset under management, and each of them have implemented huge projects globally. And yes, Bank-wise, we have Lloyd's as one of our clients. We have Bank of America as one of our clients, and we have Capital One as one of our clients, and we also have Barclays as one of our clients. And for underwriters, yes, Lloyd's is there, and Leopard Capital is there as underwriters. It depends on the region that we are operating in, and depending on the project. Can we move to the next slide, please? As I was speaking, these are the clients. So primarily, we have been catering to the global market, and in Indian market, currently we are in negotiation for couple of compressed biogas projects and three solar projects and couple of ethanol projects. So all the negotiations are underway, and you will understand why when we say that the negotiations are underway, because there are documentation processes. Sometimes the
Sanjay
EC
ji,
has not identified. Yeah.
yeah, I think the mic is moving, so there is some disturbance when you are
Can you
speaking.
hear me properly now?
Yeah, yeah, now it's better. Now it's better.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. So, as you can see, we have a list of highly qualified clients, but that doesn't make any difference. You see, MetLife or Dino or having Volkswagen or Bristol Myers as my client doesn't make any difference. This fund is called BioAngel ESG Paradise Fund. ESG stands for environmental social governance, and this fund is specifically meant for the energy sector of India. And whether it is we call it compressed biogas, or we call it ethanol, or you can call it liquid gold, this, these funds are dedicated for that. Can we go to the next slide, please? This explains we are backed by 5 US funders currently, but generally these numbers keep on increasing and decreasing. It's never like we have some people do have mergers and acquisitions, and some people do bifurcate and they go their different ways. So the numbers keep on. It's a dynamic entity, and we have around 3 European funders. We have 2 in Germany, 1 in Austria, 1 in Switzerland, and I think a couple of them are in UK also with us. And we also have 3 funders basically from GCC, and quite often they are pretty excited about some of our projects, and then they do their own due diligence, and they have their, like when I said that for ethanol you need to have a 20% proof of fund in your own account. That is not the only way that funds come in. There are different ways, and this is one of the ways which has been pretty much palatable, because in India, if we look at the fixed deposit rates, they are pretty high. So if we are asking a promoter to park some money, if it is 15% of the project in FD, and he doesn't have to remove that money till his operation starts, he doesn't have a problem with that, and he doesn't invest into the project, but that's for the investor's confidence. We also our sources of funding are institutional funding, ultra high net worth funding. We do have pension funds with us, and we do have endowment funds, and uh, some of our partners do participate in the small and mid cap programs for providing short, medium, long merit quality administrative roles. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is our global financing operation, and this is where our demographically we are spread. And we are not physically existing in all the places. We are primarily existing in India right now, and we have one of our VPs operating out of Birmingham, and we have a couple of associates operating out of Africa, and a couple of them out of Europe, and a couple of them out of USA. But we principally primarily concentrate on businesses in India right now. Next slide, please. These are the different industries. If you look at the countries and the industries and the different segments, like we are in solid waste management, we are in agriculture, we are in aerospace, and we are into, of course, energy management that I was discussing, and then we are into anything that has to do with mechanical production. Then we are also into pharmaceuticals. We are into, typically we encourage people, those who are into production of active pharmaceutical ingredients. and we also take care of real estate sector. So this is basically the industry spread. If anybody is interested, you can go through our website, and in our website there is something called as Project Essentials. Under the Project Essentials, we have covered in detail about each of the domain that we cater to and what are the specific requirement for each of the domain. And if we look at ethanol, since ethanol has a off-taker, and off-taker is government of India, so it is a very protected business. So getting funds, finding funds for this kind of a project is not a big deal, provided the entrepreneur has found the right EPC who is willing to give a performance bank guarantee, and they have the right operations and maintenance company who is willing to sign a service level agreement and service level guarantee. And these are English words which might sound very fancy, but they basically means that the EPC is assuring you that for every money you pay them to build the factory for them for you, they will either conform to the standard, quality standard, or they, if they do not conform, they will pay a penalty for it. And after the factory is done and when the production starts, your O&M, whenever they have they are maintaining the plant on your behalf, they will conform to certain production standards, certain quality standards, or they'll pay a penalty for that. Let's move to
Sanjay
the
ji,
next slide. Huh.
we'll have to wrap up in another
Yeah,
3 to 4 minutes.
wrap it
We
up
have a lot
quickly.
of questions. Yeah, yeah.
These are basically these are few institutions which we are talking, which help us while doing our advisory, and we can skip that. In India, we have a different set of institutions. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, this is something which is pretty important. I want all of you to understand the two methods that we discussed that has interest subvention, whether it is 5% collateral and 5% margin money with a escrow account, or it is 80/20. Both of them are corporate funding. In that, you are getting a term loan and a working capital. In this special purpose project funding, you are getting, this is the right side, that is where you can, any new company, a startup can be funded. You don't need to have a turnover to get funds for these kind of projects. Please move to the next slide. So as I said, this is off balance sheet. You might have a balance sheet which is 100 crores or 500 crores or 1 crore or 1000 rupees. It doesn't matter. If you have a good off taker, you have a good EPC. EPC means engineering, procurement, and construction. The companies which will going to build the plant for you. And if you have the right kind of feedstock provider, that is, if your feedstock is rice straw, then you should have the right amount of rice straw. If it is sugarcane, or if it is any mixture of biomass. Then this is a well developed recycling mechanism. This is all English. Let's move to the next slide. And this is a non-recourse. Yeah, I need to explain what is a non-recourse financing. The project itself is the collateral. Now, if the project fails, that means that's it. The project failed. The owner doesn't have to place any of his personal belongings as a part of collateral for this project. So basically, what the investor does is they use a insurance agency. They use their actuaries to underwrite these loans. So if the project fails, it is the insurance company who pays for the cost of the loan. Okay, this is little bit explaining how this protective mechanism of project funding works. If anybody wants to understand this in greater detail, then you can write a mail to me, and I think you can write a mail to Guru, and Guru can share my contacts. Or if you're sharing all our contacts at the end of the presentation, it is great for us. Or maybe in the last slide, you will find my mobile number and my contacts. Let's move to the next one. Yeah. So if all of you look very clearly at the slide, all these things, this slide is available on my website. So this whole presentation is available on my website. So all the components, the center asset is the promoter and his plant, and all the components that is around the asset are the requirement which collectively carry the risk of the whole project. So if it succeeds, everybody succeeds. If it fails, everybody fails. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, as I was telling you, these are the different segments that we look into. But since currently today our main stress is on ethanol, so we will stick to that. This slide is available in Project Essentials first item on the menu. People who are interested, they can go there and download it. Move to the next slide, please. These are the essential evaluation procedures, and most of the evaluation procedures are same like the bank. Only thing is we don't ask you to bring um, gold or land as collateral to be placed for this project. The project which we are building is the collateral for the project. I mean, for the money that is being lent for the project. And the rest are few other these are all typically all the investors, they follow the banking principles, so most of the documents that we require is the documents which the banks also require. Next slide, please. This is something which these are some things which are pretty essential when we conduct a due diligence, and I will discuss it on a case to case basis, because if I start explaining what is a discounted cash flow and what is net asset value, or what is a comparable company's
Sanjay
model.
ji, that will be an entire session on VC
Yeah,
funding then.
yeah, let's not get into that. So let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Repeat. So fine. If we miss out something, we go and repeat. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is some Sarbanes-Oxley. Please don't get confused. These are all words which are supposed to be there for your accounts department to understand. So promoters need not get confused with this slide. Please go to the next slide. So as I was telling, if this, just remember that if you have 15% of the collateral, if you can pledge that collateral, I mean 15% of the investment as margin money, if you can place it in your account in your bank, then yes, investor will be willing. There are some investors who do evaluate promoters who do not have this margin money. But quite honestly, I'm yet to see some real funding happening in that street. I mean, there's a lot of talk, but funds don't come in. Every promoter always wants to see what is the every investor always wants to see what is the promoter's skin in the game. So let's go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, I think we have reached to the end of the session.
Yeah.
This is where we'll be sharing the details of all the speakers. Sanjay ji, thanks for this session, and also anybody who is interested in looking at like how Sanjay ji mentioned, even the 5% money that is required as part of the 95/5 scheme, government scheme, then obviously we can approach Dr. Sanjay and his organization, and also look at the various options of funding, like how he said, even if you are able to get the even if you are able to get the amount in your account, then also their organization is ready to fund the project. With that, I would like to pull up a poll right now. All of you as participants will be getting a poll which has about 3 to 4 questions. I request you all to answer it. As that happens, and as you people are answering the questions, I would like to take the next 10 minutes to run through the vast list of questions. I've got more than 90 questions here. I'm sure I won't be able to answer all of them. So one question to Anilesh ji. What is a typically, economically feasible plan with the current scenario if somebody wants to go for the government scheme?
100 kl plant is typically the most economical plant, but certain people are also planning for 100 kl and starting with the 50 to 60 kl, and they are again pushing to 100 kl. 100 kl is the most economical plant.
Right, right. Just to add on to that, see, typically what happens is, there are a lot of players involved. So when we say this is a, economically feasible plant, the reason why we are saying that is we are looking at the aspect of how easily it how easy it is to get a EC clearance, how easy it is to get the DFPD approval, and all these aspects also taken into consideration. So, like how Anilesh ji said, you could go for a 100 KLPD plant approval because that is more easier to get. Then based on your investment and based on how much land and other factors, you can go for a smaller plant, and over a period of time you can increase your capacity.
Yeah.
Anilesh ji, there are questions coming in. Can I use other raw materials other than the five that have been suggested by the government?
Yeah. We can produce ethanol with the other material containing the starch, but these six materials which we use for the production of ethanol, government and the oil marketing companies are purchasing, and they have fixed the prices on this. Now, if we want to sell in the pharmaceutical sector and the other industrial sector, you can produce ethanol with the other material also. But the quantum of that production, demand in the market is very less. But the demand of ethanol by these products by the oil companies is huge.
Right. Next question we are getting is, how do I select the right land?
The Environmental Clearance Committee has certain parameters for selection of the land. Like, for example, it should be 10 kilometers away from the forest, reserve forest, some 1 kilometer from the habitation, like this. There, from national highway, you have to be 1 kilometer away from national highways. That is why they've got the 10 parameters. And when you go for customization, we can do with the help of SolutionBuggy. That is no issue. Yeah.
Right. Maybe somebody is very curious. One question to Mr. Torben Bonde: what is the price of ethanol in Denmark? You are on mute, sir.
Okay, maybe now.
Yeah.
It's a very good question. The price of gas is almost €2 per liter. €2 per liter. And then I expect and that is including some taxation and fees, But I would expect that the price of cellulosic ethanol on the market today would be close to, as a minimum, would be if a producer ethanol, as a minimum, it would be €1 per liter. If you are a large ethanol producer, you are certain to get €1 per liter.
Right.
And then for the consumers, they will see something like almost €2 per liter when it's mixed into gasoline.
And Mr. Anilesh, would there be a possibility of somebody making ethanol in one state and transferring it to another state? Would it be economically viable?
If you have got the agreement with the oil marketing companies for a particular state and the depot supply, and if you have excess production, or if the oil companies wants to shift your ethanol from one state to another, that can be done. And the cost of transportation, the oil companies give you.
So this can happen in some cases where you are living on the border of your state, and your nearest OMC or the refinery what you're looking at could be in the bordering state. So in that case, as now there is no VAT or anything of that sort. So the oil companies are ready to give you the GST plus the transportation
Yeah, yeah.
over and above the ethanol price
Yes.
that is
Yes.
quoted.
Yes, yes. That is no issues.
Right. Yeah. And then many people have asked, is there a working plant in Gujarat or in Andhra Pradesh or in MH? So be rest assured that ethanol processing and ethanol blending has been given very good momentum since 2014. So most of the sugar plants which are existing have an ethanol plant as well. Most of the big ones, and there are dedicated ethanol plants that have come up, both with 1G as well as with 2G. If you have seen in Haryana, the first 2G plant has been inaugurated. Of course, that has been run by IOCL. But the private sugar mills, most of them have an ethanol plant. So across the country and across most of the states, you can find a ethanol generation plant.
Yeah, from 2014 to 2018, all the sugar factories have been given the target to produce ethanol also with the financial support from the government. And as of date, they have all exhausted their capacity because the production of cane sugar is limited. Although the area and the production has increased by 10 to 15%, but all the sugar mills, almost all, have got the ethanol plants separately adjacent to their this thing. And now government has proposed to put up the from grains. One is a molasses and the cane sugar, another is a grains. So now the pressure is from the government for the grains. So now whatever the plants are coming, new coming plants is of grains only.
Right. So it's there is no dearth of plants as of today. One question to Dr. Sanjay. What about the bank loans? Will it be available for even the newly formed companies? Dr. Sanjay, you're on mute.
Since our funding is off balance sheet, so we do not differentiate between startup companies or companies with having good balance sheet. Only thing they should have is all of you will have the same LOI. They should have a good EPC. Their engineering procurement company should have implemented couple of projects before. That's it. And they should have arrangement with the cooperative for the feedstock, whatever feedstock they're choosing.
Right. And also, like I was telling, even in the morning, these are basically grains that you are using and sugarcane. So everything is agro-based products as the raw material. So since you already know what the cost that the government or that the OMC is paying for your end product, to make the plant more feasible, what I suggest is, whoever is going to set up the plant, also make sure that you have a good tie-up with the agro-based companies or the farmer-producing organizations like FPOs, or there could be APCs in your wherever locality, and make the farmers also a part of this, plant. That will give you two things. One is you have a steady supply of raw material available to you, and even if there is a hike in the raw material prices, then you are insinuated to some extent that the farmers who are growing these crops are also part of your firm. So that way you will be able to put a brake on the rising cost of the raw materials. So over a period of time, although as in the next 3 to 4 years, the government will increase the buying price of the ethanol, and the demand for ethanol also will increase. But it does not mean that the raw material cost will not increase. So at any given point of time, there will be a chances that the raw material prices can increase. That is one thing. And the second thing is, in ethanol plant, getting the ethanol out and giving it to the OMC is not the biggest challenge. Today, what we are seeing with the existing plants also is that what do they do with the byproducts? So that is also something as a entrepreneur you have to look at and have a good consulting team with you to make sure that the byproducts that are coming out of the unit are being having a good market. One big byproduct is DDGS. So I mean, as a suggestion or as a well wisher, what we could suggest is make sure that you have a good buyer for your DDGS. Otherwise, in a week, if your DDGS is not lifted out from your plant, then there are all the possibilities that your plant will shut down in the next 2 weeks. The only reason being that there is a huge quantity of your byproduct DDGS coming out, and that the only use as of now is for cattle feed. So that is also something that you should look at. And there are countries like Nepal and a few other countries where there is a big demand for cattle feed, and they are good importers of DDGS as of today. The government, price for DDGS as of today, which we put even in our detailed project reports, is in the range of 18 rupees to almost 30 rupees. But again, will it be the same, or once more ethanol plants start coming up, the prices may or may not go down? So that is something that somebody has to look at as well. And as another suggestion, what we can also suggest is that you need not have to give the entire production to the OMCs. You can probably give 80% of it to the OMCs, and another 20% you can keep it for marketing it to the distilleries and pharma companies as well, because obviously your price there will be much higher. I think we have time for one more question. Maybe to Anilesh ji. So, what is the typical timeline that the entire plant will take to set up?
Commissioning is 1 year, and 3 months is for taking the approval. So total 15 months.
Right. And this is for a typical 100 KLPD plant that you are talking. Right. So good. I think we have had a wonderful session today, and as usual in any ethanol session, we get a lot of questions. I'm sure a lot of them have been left unanswered today. My team will get back to you on these questions where we have not been able to look at them. If it is targeted to any specific speaker, we will circulate it back to them and get their response to it. I would like to thank all the speakers, Mr. Anilesh, Mr. Torben Bond, Mr. Dr. Sanjay, and also all the participants who have been patient with us and who have been attending both these sessions. Thank you. And if you have any questions targeted to any of the speakers or targeted to SolutionBuggy, do let us know, and my team will reach out to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaste.
The recording has been stopped. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.